From the Close Order studio that is my room, I'm Edward Fawcett. This week, before we get into our weather report from our feckless weather reporter, we have a quick word from our holiday correspondent. Over to you, Edward. Thanks, Edward. As we see the first set of pods come to a close, we're seeing some people decide that now is a great time to go on holiday. Plenty of dwarf loyalists have moved up into the Beastmen and Orcs and Goblin areas. We've had some of the Dark Kin, the Dark Elves themselves, move across the Chaos Dwarves. Still evil, a little bit shorter. And we've also seen some Empire move to Warriors of Chaos. Obviously, this is just a little bit of a snapshot of what we're seeing, but these are some of the most popular moves. Thanks, Edward. So where would you recommend at this time of year? Well, Edward, for my money at this time of year, somewhere around the woods of Athel-Loren would be a great start. It's been consistently sunny temperatures, and you've got plenty of places around to go. If you fancy somewhere a little bit more rustic, you can head south to the lands of Sylvania, although careful to try the food there, and also the lands of the Empire, and above the wide open plains are looking pretty good as well. Great stuff there from our holiday correspondent, Edward. Now over to Edward with the weather this week. Thank you, Edward. As you can see, we've got winds pushing the cloud cover from north down to the south, and it's looking really good at the top end of the map. We have got some patches of sun coming through, so my expectation is by the end of next week, we're going to be seeing a map with no bad weather at all. How's that going to work in a zero-sum game? It's not, but go with it. First of all, Beastmen are back to their consistently average ways. They have got 4 wins and 3 losses and a draw, so slightly above a 50% win rate if you factor in the draw as, half a win, something along those lines. This is great. I think Beastmen really are one of those factions that just look really solid and either have the consistent, if I get you, I kill you. If you kill me before I get to you, I just run out of steam game plan. Looking forward to seeing some more interesting stuff coming from them in the Arcane Journal, but as it stands, I think I know where we stand with them. Second up, we've got Bretonnians, a slight increase in win rate from last week, literally just from the case of there are more Bretonnian players now than there were, and I think there's 1 more win or 1 less loss, something along those lines in comparison to last time. Looking a little bit rough for Bretonnian players, only a 38% win rate, that's 6 wins, and there's a draw in there as well. So not dire, but 9 losses isn't looking amazing for the Bretonnian players. It is looking amazing for the Chaos Dwarf players, and I think this might be their first week in the green. With a 56% win rate, that's 5 wins and 4 losses. They did gain 2 players this time round, so I'm wondering if that's something to do with the increased player base, but looking good for the Chaos Dwarves. Obviously a very deep army in terms of the sort of stacking resistances, stacking negatives to hit you can put in, lots of different ways that you can build them. We have seen Ors go for the Hobgoblin Dream, although not contributing to the win rate yet. Calling you out, buddy. We have got Dark Elves, and the Dark Kin have had a good week, and by that I mean last week they were in the negative, and this week they've gone 50-50. We'll take it. We'll take it. Dark Elves, one of those armies where the things that are really good in there are really good, and the things that are not great, not so great. So nice to see them at least at an even keel this week. Coming into an army that hasn't had an even keel, Dwarves have had an absolute stormer with a genuinely above average win rate. They are 57% win rate. Keep in mind, when you factor in for draws, the average win rate in this tournament is about 46-47%. They're doing really well. This time round, they've had 4 wins, 2 losses, and only 1 draw, which is pretty low for Dwarves. So looking solid, and up 43% win rate on last week, which is a fair jump in efficiency. Empire are bouncing back from their really poor performance at the start of the tournament with 2 weeks of sub 50% win rate to 2 weeks of a 67% win rate. Really solid. That's 4 wins and 2 losses. Interesting to see the differences. I think once you're out of that bracket where you're playing against every game being Warriors of Chaos, Tomb Kings, Wood Elves, it does get a little bit easier to play some of those games. They do have the tools to deal with some of the meta armies. Obviously, Empire gun lines can bring enough guns to kill God, so maybe that's something that more of the players will be leaning into, especially now we've had a chance to change our lists a little bit for week 4. A faction that started off struggling and is continuing to struggle is the High Elves. They're technically up 5% win rate from last week, which isn't anything massively to write home about when you've gone from 20 to 25%, and that's really only because they've lost one of their players. So we're now 4 High Elf players looking at 1 win, 2 losses, and a draw. Really struggling in this match. I thought that when we got to the point where they were playing against some of the less top-level armies, they'd be doing better, but still struggling across the board with High Elves. Speaking of struggling across the board, Lizardmen. They've gone from 4 players to 3, and they have really not hit the ground running here. They have got no wins this week, which is very unfortunate for them, and takes the win rate down to a 33%. I think, unfortunately, some of the fun choices in the Lizardmen lists are just not cut out for victory. You know, looking at you, Slan, which is a shame, because it's a great mod. Orcs and Goblins have also had somewhat of a rough week, but they have gained some diversity. This time round, we've gained a Nomadic War player and a Troll Horde player, taking us up to 3 armies that aren't just playing the Grand Army, you know, with the Fanatics and all of the bits and pieces that you might expect to see. And they're doing pretty well across the board, or, you know, at least moderately well. There's 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss from the Arcane Journal armies for Orcs and Goblins, which is, you know, not bad. We have got a fairly poor win rate across the board, though. Outside of those, we've only got 3 wins and 6 losses, so looking at, again, 1/3 win rate. Ogres still struggling. There is a draw in there. It's not a true 0%, but not a lot to add for the Ogre players so far. Skaven, however, having a bounce back. I did say that I was going to ruin the Skaven win rate, and I did ruin it. No wins for Skaven last week. This time, there were 2 wins and a draw. Not a single Skaven player losing a game, which is fantastic to see. If you're looking for a cheap holiday, I know it's not my job to recommend them, but I can't say anything better than the Underhive. You probably won't get stabbed in the back. Probably. Tomb Kings have had a surprisingly difficult week this week. There are 17 Tomb King players, 16 after a drop. And out of the 16 players, there is 1 still left to play in the grand final bracket, the finals tournament. There is 1 Tomb King player, 1 Wood Elf player. But even including that, the only Tomb King players who have won a game this week are the ones who are 3-0 already, which is wild. Anyone who had lost a game prior to the beginning of week 4 and played Tomb Kings lost their games. Nuts. I don't know how that's come about, but great little stat there for you. We also have Vampire counts, and Vampire counts are looking really solid. Bouncing back after a bit of a subpar week, they went 7-3 for a 70% win rate this time round. Obviously, now that the other undead are maybe out of the brackets that are causing them so much trouble, with 8 of the undead players, 8 of the Tomb King players being in the finals bracket, they've got a little bit more room to play around with. Warriors of Chaos have dropped a little bit in win rate, but still sat at a very solid 50% and a 58% win rate overall. Warriors just looking really good right now. They've got the same sort of game plan, I think, that Chaos have a lot, which is a lot of stat check, a lot of running you down. But I think they're putting it together a lot better. Obviously, share some of the same tools, you know, the giant spawn, the other bits and pieces that you can take from the Beastman book. But I just feel like Warriors of Chaos do a better job of what Beastmen are trying to do right now. Also, Heralds of Darkness are cool. Check out the videos that I've been putting out recently. I think those Chosen Chariots are real neat, and I'd love to see more people playing them. Mostly because I want to rip off your core. I haven't worked out how to make the core. Go and play some Heralds of Darkness. Finally, we've got Wood Elves. Wood Elves, consistent. They're 6-4 this week. That's a solid 60% win rate. We're still waiting on 1 game. It's either going to be, you know, towards the Tomb Kings or the Wood Elves. But either way, still looking really solid. Turns out having the power of that many Pillars of Fire, the flexibility, the evasiveness of the army, it's a really strong package to put together, and something that's quite hard for other armies to deal with. And that brings us to the end of this week. This is week 4. We're looking at about 500 games played, so we're starting to get a reasonable chunk of data to start fiddling through with. I have been... okay, no, that was bad. And that's that. End of week 4. At this point, we're sitting on about 500 games played, so we're starting to get an actual interesting amount of stats. So next week, for week 5, we're going to be looking at, there's going to be a top 4 cut, so we know, you know, the top 4 armies in the finals, but also I want to break down some other stats. What sort of things do you find interesting? What do you want to see? Let me know down in the comments. See you next time. Thank you for watching, and thank you to the support that I receive from my channel members. Huge thanks to the Grail Knight tier supporters, and also thanks to the Longbeards and the Fanatic tier supporters as well. If you want to support the channel, you too can become a member. The link is down below the video, but if you don't want to give me any money, which is entirely fair enough, I would appreciate the thumbs up, the comments, all of those good things that help me get found in the YouTube algorithm. They really help, and they've been helping grow the channel, and I appreciate the support that I've been given. If you want to see more stuff and just engage in the community we've been building, there is a closer order Discord down below. It's not a VIP Discord, anyone can join, but there are some VIP sections for the YouTube members at Longbeard tier and above. Currently, I'm trying to get 2 videos out a week on a Thursday and a Sunday, and also doing 2 live streams. That's a Tuesday and a Friday. I do stick to this as much as possible. So, check me out. I'll see you around.